Good morning, everybody. Today we're here to discuss Octavia Butler's book, Imago. If you want to hear what happened in the first two books in this trilogy, go back and watch the videos. I'm not going to reiterate this stuff. But before we go into the book, I want to say how thankful I was that I waited until I finished the trilogy to start discussing the deeper themes of these books, because this one really crystallized what these books were about to me. Before I want to go in to the plot and the examination of this book, I want to discuss the concept of morality. Human morality is one thing. Example, if I were to kill another human being, I would consider that immoral. But if my cat kills a bird, I don't consider that immoral because it's just, following its instincts. And I really want to get into that a little bit later on because there are some things in this book that I'm not sure if they were if they're what anybody would consider moral or not. And I think that was kind of the point. So anyway, what is this book about? Well, this book is about the first Oankali construct to be born on Earth to become an Uloi, which is their non-gendered sex. Basically, Uloi don't have a gender, but they are the catalyst to by how they create new offspring. They basically mix the four other parents, genetic material together to create new life. And I mean that could be a problem if that happens. If a new Loy is born in an unexpected way. And the main character of this book, Jodas, is definitely unplanned. It wasn't planned to be a new Loy. It was planned to be either male or female. Oankali don't achieve a sex until they reach maturity, and they metamorphose to either male or female, and in this case, a new Loy. So what happens in this book? I'm just going to glance over the plot just because I want to get to what I think the themes of this trilogy were about. Basically, Jodas is born. He's expected to become either a male or female construct. I'm saying he just because, you know. Instead, it becomes a new Loy. They decide to separate it from the other people on Earth, just so that it doesn't cause problems. Because an untrained Uloi that doesn't know how to handle the power that Ulois have could become a very major problem, because Uloi mix the genetics of the things around them, and without knowing it, an Uloi that's just coming into its power could create disease, could create death, anything like that. It could be anything. So I mean, they decide to separate it from the rest of the people around them. So Jodas goes with his family into an encampment, and it's feeling after it's Uloi go through two metamorphoses. They go through one where they become an Uloi. Then they would go through a second one when they get what's called their sensory arms, their second set of arms, which kind of look like two elephant trunks hanging out from their armpits. Just go with it. Anyway, Jodas is very in need of mates, and he starts spending a lot of time away from the encampment of his family, where he meets two people, Jesusa and Tomas, and he decides he wants them as his mates. They become his mates, we will say, and I will get to this a little bit later. And then basically the plot goes where they find the last unknown encampment of humans. Some adventures occur, and the end of the book comes. And I'm kind of glossing over that because I really do want you to read this. I got to say, this was my least favorite book of the trilogy. But that's basically an overstatement. Just because this is my least favorite, I mean, you know, least favorite of this trilogy is up here, and least favorite actual books are like, well, below my floor. It's a very well written book, and it gives a lot to think about. And like I said, morality is one of them. When I said that Tomas and Jesusa become Joda's mates, I don't say that they particularly chose to do that. Uloi use what they see as scent to basically cause humans and other Oankali to become physically addicted to the presence of the Uloi. And so it kind of bugs me to see that, because that that verges on rape. I'm not even sure if it verges on it. It probably crosses the line and becomes that. I'm not going to gloss over that. This is consensual but non-consensual at the same time. The way Jodas puts it, and this book is told from his perspective, is that his scent helps the humans to do what they really want to do. I don't know if that's the case. I think that we are talking about humans being forced to become dependent on the Oankali. And that's a problem. Um, and it's a problem that I've noticed that it's a moral quandary that I've noticed from the very beginning of this trilogy. I think Octavia Butler was putting this in there quite intentionally. Is what the Oankali doing the right thing to do, or is it the wrong thing to do? And for that matter, do even human conceptions of right and wrong really apply to the Oankali? Because they're not human. This is simply the way they do things. When they came to Earth, they gave humans a choice. You can either mate with us, and your children will become a little bit more like us, thereby ending what would be considered the human race, or they can remain non-mated to Oankali and live and live outside of the Oankali, but they won't be able to have children. And the reason why that is because once the Oankali are done with the Earth, they're going to launch their ships, and their ships are living ships that they grow from the soil of the Earth. And once those ships leave, it will leave behind a dead world. It will not be livable. And in the Oankali's morality, the idea is that they're doing humans a favor by not letting them reproduce, because obviously they don't want a human civilization on Earth when they destroy it. In the second book, a Mars colony was created to be terraformed, where humans could go and become fertile again, and be able to set up a human encampment there. It's kind of not delved too far into in this book, other than giving the last settlement of humans the option of, well, you can go to Mars and have children, or you can stay here and be infertile, or you can stay here and mate with us. There isn't much of a choice there. I mean, and it's really not a choice once an Uloi gets their hooks into the humans, because the humans don't want to go to Mars, don't want to leave the Uloi, because they become almost physically dependent on the Uloi's scent. And that's a problem. At one point towards the end of the book, Jodas takes one of the other humans by the shoulders, and the human struggles to get away from it. And Jodas is thinking to himself, I'm forcing him to do what his body really wants to do, even if his eyes say that he doesn't want to do it, which is really way too close to somebody saying, your mouth says no, but your eyes say yes. It's made pretty explicit. And that's a problem because, before this, the Oankali were kind of presented as a somewhat moral race, wanting to help humans by spurring. They were presented almost as a force of evolution, and it would almost be silly to oppose them because, you don't want to stagnate as just humans. You want to evolve beyond what humans are. But in this book, it becomes really clear that the Oankali really aren't giving humanity a choice in the matter. They know humans on Mars will be genetically predispositioned to destroy their civilization anyway, and so they don't feel that they really need to give humanity a choice. I don't really like that, and the but I think one of the deeper themes that Butler is trying to dig into is colonization, and a very specific form of colonization. Think about it. You have a very superior force moving into a place and basically forcefully making that group to be assimilate either into their culture or leave to a reservation. There is a certain level of the way that you know that the West has treated Native Americans, and also the way the slave trade has forced certain peoples into making that choice. And these books have tried to present both sides of that, and I really do like that because at some point anybody that was dealing with that had to ask, well, our morality says this is wrong, but we have these other people coming in telling us we either have to leave or we have to assimilate into their culture. Maybe that's just their morality, and maybe it's not wrong according to them. Turns out, yes, it was wrong according to us, even according to us. But the question had to be posed by these different groups that dealt with colonization, and I think that's a really interesting thing to think about from this book. The book does not force any specific position on the reader. At no point does this book say you must side with either the Oankali or the humans. It leaves it up to the reader. But yeah, if in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, the Oankali come off as the villains here. They are forcing humans to be something that they're not. They're forcing humans to end the human race, and that's not good. It's it's hard to get into this and say this nicely, but yeah, I can definitely say that the Oankali come off as the villains in this book, and I'm really intrigued to find out what other people might think about it. I haven't really looked so far, and I know my discussion here is somewhat clumsy, but I really did enjoy this book, and I really highly suggest reading this entire trilogy. It's very well written. It's well worth it's well worth your time, and it will leave you things to think about. So anyway, that's it for right now. You have a wonderful day. Stay positive. Bye bye.